Welcome. It's Deborah Leanne, and at this moment, this is still the Authentic Life Radio. And because I'm thinking about changing the name because there's another podcast that actually ended in 2014 that goes by the same name that's on iTunes. So at this moment, it is still Authentic Life Radio. And this week, I don't have the right words. I just know that my feelings and emotions and my energy has been sent in a bazillion directions on wanting to heal, wanting to make a difference, wanting to show up, wanting to hide, wanting to go back to bed, wanting to cry, wanting to stamp my feet in anger, wanting to hug every person of color that I see and every white person that I see that this is hurting with everything going on in our world and in our government, and especially the events that happened in Charlottesville, which are not new. None of the things that happened, none of the relationships that were torn asunder, none of the tragic loss of life, none of the lack of accountability from our government leaders, none of this is new. In fact, it's centuries old and it's served its time and it's beyond, it doesn't even have a place anymore. It doesn't fit into my way of seeing the world, yet we still have to see the crumbling down of the old systems before anything new can emerge. I mean, I have this dream of seeing a compassionate and amazing egalitarian society, and it may be something that's far in the future, but for some reason I can see it so clearly in my mind that it's possible. And we're just not there yet. And any time that there's new things that are being birthed, there has to be some ripping away and tearing away of what was. Even the beauty of the birth of a new child means that it's going to completely change the life of the mother and the father and the family. Every new creation shifts everything all around it. And when we forget that there has to be a falling away of the old for the new to be, we're not honoring the whole cycle of life. I love living in St. Louis where we have 4 seasons. They kind of blend sometimes, but not nearly so much as places on the planet that only have 2 seasons. And I really love that we have the opportunity to see the melting away of the cold temperatures and the snow and the ice, moving into the beautiful spring and the birth of the new out of all of the dead, bare trees and the empty gardens. And then all of a sudden there's all this new growth that shows up in the spring. And then it becomes overgrowth in the summer and very abundant with the seeds that are reseeding for the next year and the bounty of fruit and vegetables and weeds. And then, we go back into the fallow of the fall and the winter. So it's a beautiful cycle, and it's part of where we're at right now. We are in the falling away. We're in the winter where it looks bleak and it looks ugly, and it's hard to imagine that new growth of good and beauty will emerge. Yet, this is a time when many white, and I'm speaking specifically to my white women friends, this is a time when we go silent. When we are uncomfortable, we just shut up. We hide behind, we read other people's stuff, we feel deeply, but we don't know how to talk about it. And you know what? Even just saying I don't know how to talk about it is better than just shutting up. I, for one, am really tired of being the quiet sex. I'm tired of being labeled a bitch or a feminazi or something just because I speak up and I speak my mind. And I don't mind creating change. I don't mind seeing the ripples of what happens when I put my foot in the door and say, no, you're not closing that on me or on that other person. Yesterday, I was at a coffee shop meeting with a lovely young man. I say young, he's 39, but who is starting an amazing outdoor experience for city kids to teach them about leadership and to teach them about thinking outside of the box. And as we were getting ready to leave, we had just hugged goodbye. It was that kind of a meeting. We got to be really close, really fast. I looked outside and I saw some white policemen walking across the street, and I saw some younger black boys across the street, probably 15, 14. And all of my nerve endings went up. And then I saw a black security officer come out and stand and watch. And then I saw a couple of other people stop and watch. And it was, I really wish that we could just trust that everybody would get along. But in this day and age, I'm afraid that my trust is sometimes lacking. And it all was okay. Everything worked out. But it was scary for me because the way the guys were walking, and the one guy had his hand on his holster, and I don't know if he had it on if it was a stick, I don't know. But I mean, it just makes me nervous when I see that. And if it makes me nervous, I can't imagine what it did to the hair on the back of the neck of those young black boys or any of the people of color that were standing by watching. Because you could cut the tension with a knife. And this is not the way a typical afternoon at a coffee shop on the corner, a very busy corner in the city, should look like. And the fact that people are surprised that there's these very active hate groups and white supremacy groups and neo-Nazi groups out there, I am ashamed to call you, my friends. If this surprises you in any way that these people are out there and that racism is very much alive in our country and around the world, then I am just ashamed. I'm like, where have you been? Where have you been? So with all of these emotions flying around and moving around within me, I wonder how much of this has to do with the planetary stuff. And I know that some people think that's crazy, but when the planets move, when the moon is full, it influences our bodies. More babies are born during full moons. More crazy stuff and acts of violence happen during the time of full moons. And when the planets, there's 5 of them right now that are in retrograde, which means they're standing still. They're not necessarily moving backward, but as the rest of us continue in our cycles and they are stopped, it looks and appears that they're moving backwards. And one of them is Mercury, that's in backwards. It's in retrograde. And we talk a lot about Mercury in retrograde, like, oh yeah, that's why. And it's true. Yesterday I had major communication issues. I fought technology most of the day, as did my communications person, Carmen. I felt so badly that we could not find ways to get this format of this document to speak to this format and on this platform, and it just was frustrating. And it didn't get done. So for my Tuesday meditation, this beautiful meditation that I recorded yesterday morning to share with the Shine community, it never got posted. Facebook doesn't like that type of document. So I have to upload it into YouTube, and then YouTube, so anyway, I found a way to do it, but it was not the simplest way. And so besides the communications that are already mucked up on so many levels, technology is mucked up. And we're seeing right now, firsthand, right out in front of us, the leader of our country, one of the most powerful men in the world, who is just saying that both sides are at fault, who is unwilling to say that this isn't the way to run a unified country. This isn't a way to bring people together, that we do not hate. That is not the United States way. Or maybe it is. Maybe that's his view of what the United States is, which makes, I hope, more people realize that we need to find another way to share our love and to bring together the community, the common unity that we crave, that we desire, that we want more of. Or do we? Because here again, white women friends, how many times do we find ourselves moving farther away because we don't want to be in the city? We don't want to be near the people of color. We don't want to be around the poverty. We don't want to be reminded of that there's things in the world that are ugly and that we don't want to look at. And I'm angry because this is not the way that we can continue. And if we continue to act like we are not seeing it, that we don't see something and say something, if we continue to let men say things that are rude or hateful about any other group, including us as women, or Jews, or Muslims, or blacks, or Hispanics, or it doesn't matter. Anytime that there's a slam made in front of us and we let it go by not saying anything, that we are party to it. We are just as much a part of the hate by not standing up and saying, I disagree. That is not the way I see the world. Maybe the way you see the world, but I just want you to know that I do not share your views. If we don't stand up, if we don't say this out loud, we are part of the hate. And it's time for us to stop playing some silly party line or religious line or following just because we are afraid to use our own voice and not follow and stand up and lead our own lives with our own views and our own beliefs. And this is part of shine. It is not always beautiful. When we shine, we are being authentic in our light and our love and our leadership. And I cannot believe that deep inside your heart of hearts, there is not a compassion for every other person on this planet. And we may not know how to show it. We may not know how to reach out and say anything to somebody who we know is hurting. We may not know how. And we may feel like we're clumsy, and we probably are. In so many conversations with my friends of color, I've had to be reminded that that was insensitive, Deborah. Okay. Teach me. How can I say it in a way where I want to share, I want to learn. I want to learn how to not say insensitive things. And every little bit has helped. But it means I have to be vulnerable, and I have to make mistakes, and I have to make the reach. I have to reach across the aisle. I have to hug the other person or extend a hand to the other person or smile at the other person. I have to be the one that starts it. And this is another thing that I feel very strongly about in terms of we're not meant to just be quiet. We're not meant to go back to sleep and be like lemmings and just follow everybody off the cliff. Please wake up. Please be okay with being messy and making mistakes and looking foolish and being vulnerable and crying because you don't know how to be with all of this. Because when you pretend like everything's okay, that is not showing up as an authentic leader. So in response to this, and I didn't get into any kind of grounding, I'm sorry, I went right into this. I did a beautiful meditation beforehand for myself, and I apologize for not allowing us to start off with the grounding, breathing, and all of that. But I'm asking you to do that on your own. Breathe in to what is your truth. What does your heart feel now? Is it hurting? Is it sad? Is it scared? Put your hand on your heart and your hand on your lower belly. Feel your power connected. Breathe into both of those areas. One of the best things you can do right now is to get peppermint oil and wild orange. And when you put peppermint oil in one hand and the wild orange essential oil in the other hand, and rub them together and cup your hands over your nose, it allows you to breathe in oils to interrupt the old stories and allow you to create new ones. It gives me hope. Wild orange is about the oil of abundance, and peppermint is about the oil of a buoyant heart. It raises my heart to a new level of compassion, to a bigger and wider and broader version of who I am, especially when I find myself pulling in and being small and constricted. I woke up 2 or 3 times last night and my hands were clenched, like I was scared and I had to hold myself in. Another time I found, even sleeping, I had my shoulders up really close to my ears. And I just told myself to soften. I'm safe. All is well. And allowed my heart to soften as well. When our hearts soften and we lose all of that constriction and that safety and that security and those big iron stone walls that we have created around our hearts, we can open them to more for ourselves and to be available to love others on a deeper and wider and greater scale. And the other thing is, I just want you to know that all of the confusion is part of what we need to feel right now. It may not look clear, and just like the upcoming eclipse, it's going to give the light and the dark are coming together in a way that is going to feel uncomfortable. And yet, in some ways, I'm excited. It's beautiful. It's an opportunity for things to be different than they have ever been. And if we do not take this opportunity and really take full advantage of it and pull open all the doors and pull out all the stops and open our hearts bigger and wider into deeper and more amazing intimacy and community and love and compassion, we're missing out. It's a once in our lifetime opportunity to get here, to grow there, to be that, to be whole, to be one. And on that note, I wanted to sign off by just letting you know that you can join the community over at the Shine Challenge on Facebook. It's open. Come in. I'm offering Monday musings via video and Tuesday meditations once I learn how to get those uploaded. Wednesday, this recording will be posted. Thursdays, I'm going to have a throwback from an old blog that has to do with something that I've written in the past that is perfectly timed to the topic of shine. And Fridays and the weekend will be a recap and a celebration, including a dance song for you to keep your shine going over the weekend. It's the overview of what shine is and why it's important is this week. We'll really dive in deeper next week with the S of shine. The self-awareness and the shadows and the somatic awareness. And then the H around the health, mind, body, heart, and soul. And then the I, the integrity and the intuition and the inner landscape. And the N, the no limits, the art of saying no and what is next. And the E, the whole thing around egalitarianism and equanimity and your environment, who you surround yourself with, and who you are from the inside out. So that's where we're going in the next 6 weeks. Join us. And until our next time together, shine. Even if it's not pretty, even if it's not perfect, just shine. Take good care.